Hello everyone, welcome to my fifth game of the Intermezzo Season 12. This game is against Kimmo and Klakla92th. Currently, before this game has been played, I have 17 points, Kimmo has 7, and Klakla92th has 2 points. So Klakla is pretty much, well, he's basically designated to be relegated, while Kimmo still has a chance to get out of relegation zone over Skywalker, who has 13 points overall. So Kimmo would need at least 6 points between the next two games. So he does need to do very well. So looking over the leaders and wonders, again, I like generally looking from the back. We have big point wonders with Hollywood Spaceflight. Internet is actually a very, very big point wonder in this game is because of Pierre and Sid Meier. While Spaceflight is not as well supported, well, Spaceflight does have Jobs and Meier as well, but no Einstein, no Gates in that regard. Hollywood has Chaplin and Marlene in order to kind of support it, and then again we have Watt into Marie. The only issue with Watt this time around is that there's no railroad to help support him, but just letting him know that he's there. And then also in this game there's Gandhi, so he can kind of protect in the military sense. The only problem with trying to hide behind Gandhi in a three-player game is that there's actually a lot of military actions available. Additionally, there's still Catherine and Kremlin and Coliseum all providing extra military actions. So in general, Gandhi is not going to be like a wall to hide behind. Leading into the science leaders, you have Newton and Darwin going down that route. And then leading into the culture runners, you have Bach and Shakespeare going down that route. There's also Darwin, to go into Pierre, since you would definitely need arenas in that sense. And you also have Nobel also going into science as well. Going from age 1, there is a Suez in the game, but there's no colonization payoff leader. In age 2, there's no Cook, and there's no Maria Teresa. So not the best support from the leaders in age 2, but this time is a lot better in the support for the leaders in age 1. We have Eleanor, Isabella, and Columbus all kind of in the colonization zone. And then there's also Colossus, which could also help with the colonization as well. Additionally, you have some other support leaders, like you can go Joan into Bach, into Marlene, that kind of line, or Leo into Newton, into Meier or Jobs, that kind of line. Or you even have Gutenberg going into Shakespeare or Darwin or something like that as well. So there is quite a lot of synergy in between the leaders going up the row. Just basically pointing that out and just to keep that all in mind. So Kimmo, first to act, he takes Engineering Genius. I'm not a big fan of this one. I kind of believe that you should probably just take the Wonder or the Leader. In general, though, I do think Caesar is probably one of the worst leaders in the game, and I can totally understand passing him, but Roman Rhodes has to be the correct pick here over Engineering Genius. For me, I take Roman Rhodes and Caesar. I really generally like picking up a leader and a wonder in my first picks, but this could still be wrong. I really, really don't like Caesar. I kind of just decide to pick him up, though, see what happens, see if I can use him well. And honestly, even though I don't think of him as a good leader, sometimes he can put on some pressure in the early game, especially if Klakla92th decides to go for Hammurabi. It might disincentivize that. So I kind of want to just see how it works out. I'm not missing out on much, just like at Richland A or something. And there aren't. If Klakla tries to go for one of the better leaders, Kimmo takes the other one. Maybe I'm stuck with Moses, even though there's still a couple other leaders I could drop. And I have a 4-step wonder, so I don't really want to spend 2 civil actions taking a leader that's better than Moses. So kind of just go with this. A little questionable. I really think Caesar is probably the worst leader out there. But I do have to try things that are not optimal sometimes to see if that's actually true or not. Anyways, Klakla goes for Hammurabi in Richland. Pretty acceptable. I do think that Hammurabi can be pressured by Caesar, but it's not like I have Colossus or anything, so maybe he can defend a little bit. Just has to be careful with the 1 MA. Alright, now Kimmo goes for Alex and Stonehenge. Just builds the mine since he can just use the Alex bonus anyways as political action. And for me, I just end up doing normal stuff and then taking the frugality. I take this frugality over that one because I think this frugality will block some of the better cards coming down the row, so I figure I might as well. Here he goes for Hammurabi, takes iron, takes Colossus, builds a mine, and he actually did use both. He did actually use the extra MA from Hammurabi here, so if I were Caesar and I were really lucky and I drew 2 aggressions, I could aggress Klakla right now. So it's not necessarily advised to do this line with Hammurabi, just in case that does happen, because it's not impossible for Caesar to draw 2 aggressions here. So the cost would have been minimal. In order to do, you just need to not build this mine or something, or in theory you probably shouldn't have like taken the iron for 2 here and maybe just increase popping and build the mine. But he does kind of risk it. If I landed like a, if I had like an aggression like a plunder and then an enslave, the enslave would actually really hurt in the very beginning like this. Anyways, Kimmo uses Alex's ability and then does normal stuff. I definitely don't mind this too much. I think this is a pretty good turn. Alternative was also to build 2 or 3 steps of Stonehenge and increase pop once, but this is totally fine. Alright, I see Rebellion, thinking that I can kind of play around it if I know about it. Build the lab, take the Code of Laws, which I think the extra civil actions are important, increase pop here without the frugality. Klakla Seeds, which I also don't know why you should be doing as Hammurabi. You could run into the issue that I still have more aggressions, and now that he still only has 1 defense card, I could still have a double aggression, and I've had more chances to do it now, so it's even worse. Alright, Kimmo Seeds flips Development of Religion. We all have a free population. In order to take it, takes Swordsman, starts building on a Stonehenge. Here I seeded Raiders. I didn't want to seed the developed territory. Klakla has Colossus, there's Isabel on the row I didn't plan on taking. Didn't really want to seed colonies when I know there's a Suez in the game, so just start with the Raiders. It gives me the extra resources to finish my Silk Road, my Roman roads, which was a big deal. So I just spend my turn doing that. Klakla finishes Colossus and goes for Isabella, so he really does have some good colonization going on. Even though I have a bunch of cards, it's not guaranteed. I can't really hold all of them all the time and hold the tactics, so I can't. I'm still not necessarily inclined to seed this year. I'm going to just take some yellow cards. Klakla reveals Kimmo reveals heavy cavalry, so clearly going for Khan here. Has enough science to go for Monarchy, which seems like a good use of his Stonehenge. He can't finish it, now or anything, but he'll have extra science still, so pretty good use, I think. See one more time. And since I do flip the deck, and I know that I put in some strength events there, I decide not to seed again. So instead, I just build my knight, or go for knights, build a knight and a warrior here, and then reveal the tactic. Not too much here. It's just tough to get out of corruption, so it's basically what I decided to do. Klakla reveals Biting Band, goes for iron, has a good amount of resource production, and takes the Monarchy and Alchemy. Definitely pretty reasonable things to take. Oh, sorry. I forgot to mention that the card that I seeded last turn was New Deposits, so this is definitely quite good for Klakla. Kimmo offers trade agreement. I generally don't accept this without having increased production in one direction. Like if I had irrigation here, I would, but I just don't want to accept it like this. Kimmo finishes Stonehenge, goes for Swordsman, tries to get a little bit stronger, and skips out on the Code of Laws, which I thought was pretty interesting here. Actually takes the reserves and drama instead. I usually wouldn't take reserves 1, but he does, so this Code of Law is going to fall off since I have the other one. So it's pretty interesting. I will say I'm not like a huge fan of having seeded a bunch of these strength-based events, so I feel like I haven't really played Caesar very well here. I can get stronger, I can build one more knight, but you can see why this will run into issues because I'm going to run out of happy faces soon. So I don't feel super comfortable with the fact that I seeded Raiders in here, and I also don't feel comfortable with the fact that I seeded Rebellion if the deck doesn't get to it before the end of the age. Here I don't seed because I don't want to get hit by Raiders. Build my knight, go for Universitas, take Breakthrough so I can go for Code of Laws next turn more easily. Or get a refund back from Code of Laws. Klakla goes for Warfare. Increases pop. Builds a little bit more. Probably doesn't have enough to defend without it, basically, so kind of forced him in this position to go for extra strength warfare. And then builds an extra warrior in order to, assuming he has 1 defense card here, basically. Klakla seeds, or Kimmo seeds again. Flips Cultural Influence, goes for this irrigation. Just build, and just starts upgrading it. Takes Engineering Genius as well. And then really trying to keep up in that strength, basically. It's going to pretty much get the bonus every single time from getting this con. There's no way Klakla really has the ability to get stronger. So, yeah. Anyways, I see Barbarians here, knowing that I'll definitely hit Kimmo. Unfortunately, Dark Ages flips and I can't get my Code of Laws out. And then I'll also seed in Foray, thinking that I'll be one of the 2 strongest. Reveal Raiders, which is nice, so I don't have to deal with it. I wish I could kind of go for like Columbus here, but I didn't keep the territory. So I go for Joan instead. And I take Cultural Heritage, just to kind of supplement the science that I have. Here, I will have 6 resources to finish Universitas next turn, but unfortunately, I know that one of these 2 is Rebellion, and I was really hoping to push that out of the deck before this age ended. So all I am is hoping that Klakla doesn't see because he's the weakest, and that Kimmo doesn't hit it with the 50-50. And then I draw Inhabited, so I really would have liked to go for Columbus here instead of Joan, but it is what it is. Now, Klakla does seed and actually does hit the Rebellion, so really, really played poorly with Caesar there, but gonna have to deal with it, and yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Klakla has to disband a mine in order to deal with it. Takes part in Circus, so he won't be unhappy for the next areas. It's not necessary. It's not really necessary though, since the Rebellion hit already, so there's nothing happiness related for a while, so a little surprised that he's even spending his actually going for the Bread and Circus as opposed to just upgrading here. Kimmo is the only one not affected. Flips the new deposits that I put in. Upgrades, upgrades, upgrades. And then we'll have enough to finish Himeji next turn if he wants to. Now I have 2 civil actions, kind of in a bind, because of that stupid rebellion, but that is just my fault. So I have a couple options. I see that there's Foray on top, so I decide to, I think that is like the best way to deal with my happiness issue, since I can grab some food and increase pop. So I put in the Inhabited, and then I flip Foray, so I can just use one of my actions to do that. Play the Code of Laws out, can't finish Universitas since I'm 1 action short. And then I draw a Classic Army, which is definitely pretty good here. Since I already have the Knights, just need the Riflemen. And yeah, I know that everybody else can kind of go for it, but Klakla doesn't have any military text developed, so this should be an easy transition to go into. Klakla goes for his Bread and Circus, builds, upgrades, and goes for Selective Breeding. Still think it's a little bit unnecessary to go for Bread and Circus at the moment. You had enough science to go for Selective Breeding, which probably would have been a little bit better here. I guess his issue though is that he didn't have any hand space. So he would have needed to play the reserves first, then take Selective Breeding, then go for it, and then upgrade, and then he might have been in Corruption. but I still think that it might have been better to go for that first, since now it's going to delay selective breeding quite a bit in order to deal with that science cost of the bread and circus. So just one of those issues of carrying a lot of text in your hand that you didn't have the science for, kind of paying for it in this sense. Now it's going to be really difficult for Klakla to spend resources very easily. He might go for alchemy next turn, but then that means the blade is breeding again. So yeah, especially this late, alchemy is not like super powerful or impactful, but it might just be the only way to get out of corruption. Kimmo goes for a war against Klakla, which definitely makes sense. Finishes Himeji. Goes for an extra warrior. And yep. So 16 is pretty powerful here. One of the things though is that its war is, it's not like all in, but it is a big commitment to build 5 swordsmen. There aren't a lot of tactics that fit 5 swordsmen, and just that investment in resources to go for something that's not really an economic base, there's not like really any economy associated with Himeji, not really economy associated with swordsmen, so he is sacrificing his production here by only having 3 resource and 2 science production here by putting all those resources in. Yeah. So Kimmo, or so I do flip barbarians. I do put in politics of strength, and it's kind of an ambitious seed, especially since I'm not getting stronger for a while. But I'm kind of looking at Kimmo's position. Doesn't seem like he's going to have a ton of extra strength associated with his military. He does have the extra population, but the only way that I can easily get stronger if I just get riflemen and rebuild classic army. Again, it's super ambitious. I'm not 100% sure what I was thinking when I seeded it. I did maybe just want to push out some of the events that are in there, but I'm not really pushing for anything in particular. So it seems like a very ambitious play, but yeah, I kind of just do it anyways. So I finish Universitas, pick up the coal, pick up Rev Idea, pick up the Republic. I could even go for it next turn, and just play out the cultural heritage here. Can't really think about going for cavalrymen or journalism at this point, so just kind of using the slow actions I can, which are things like revolutionary idea, reserves, or slow action. Klakla drew promised military protection, really good for him. I decided to accept it. Don't really want to give Kimmo any more of an edge since he's doing pretty well in this game already. Klakla pushes out his alchemy, gets Nobel, disbands a religion, builds another warrior to fulfill his tactic again, and goes up to 16. So that was actually a pretty good defense. Grabbing that promised military protection, and I really thought that Klakla was in a really poor place, so no problem just helping him out here. So then they tie. Kimmo flips irrigate immigration here. Unfortunately, I'm the only one not part of it. Builds another swordsman. Goes for a legion instead of heavy cavalry because he planned on switching to Bach, and then just side grades a philosophy into a drama here. I think that this is very, very, very ambitious line. It's not necessary for Kimmo to be stronger here. He has 4 in tactics right now, 2 in the extra swordsman. Could have instead used his population for a drama instead of side grading this. One of the big things that this is going to be a problem for is that he has no science production here, very little resource production, or to improve it later. So this is very ambitious in the sense that he's trying to go for a lot of culture this early, but it's coming at a really big cost of his production. It may or may not pay off if he can defend well enough. Like myself, I don't have a lot of resource production either. Klakla is not in the best place either, so maybe he's thinking that he can just run away with this game, build 3 dramas, get 6 more culture production total, kind of just ride that for a long time. So here I seeded Uncertain Borders a long time ago with Caesar, and now I see it on top. So I pretty much project that there's a strength event on top, but it's pretty difficult for Klakla to get stronger. He does have the extra warrior here, but he only has 4 science, so he can't go for another military tech. So the best thing he can really do is build another unit somewhere, but that's only 1 strength. So cancel the pact, go for the religion, organized religion, and the republic as well. And then I just decide to get just barely stronger. Pretty much it. Still take the cannons. Maybe I can get mobile artillery instead. But I'm still pretty much thinking that I'm going to get riflemen and go for classic army. But I definitely don't need scientific method anytime soon. Most of my resources are going to have to be spent on coal soon. And then selective breeding and stuff like that as well. I would have really liked to try and go for ocean liner as well, but I'm kind of the belief that you really shouldn't spend resources on wonders until you've gotten your production up. So I try and stay focused and just think about the coal. And then I did need to keep these cards here in case of any aggressions and stuff. I'm really happy that I drew this other one just in case of, like, if Kimmo sacked or something, I would not have been able to defend. So really glad to have this as insurance. Then Klakla goes for ocean liner. Seems pretty reasonable. Upgrades its labs. And we'll have enough resources to still go for ocean liner next turn. I'm assuming you can still defend. You may or may not be able to, but it is what it is. You couldn't get really any stronger anyways. Kimmo does flip that on certain borders, so he has a lot going on for him. So, upgrades that religion into a drama, then goes for method. Yep. And then takes the other cannons. By the way, at this point, I'm thinking about going for Watt. My production's really, really terrible. And yeah, I'm hoping for things to make this easier upgrades since I'll have coal and selective breeding. But he still hasn't shown up, so kind of have to just go with it. I did see the terrorism, and the reason that I decided to seed into it is in case Klakla didn't actually have an event to seed. I want to seed into it because I feel like I can deal with it next turn, whereas Kimmo can't rebuild this scientific method. So I want him to just be stuck on the 8 science that he has, since it'll be really, really, really difficult for him to build the scientific method again. Whereas I have some good yellow cards on the row that I can try and go for, and then I can kind of just deal with it. So kind of just in case that Klakla couldn't seed, I decided to just take initiative and do it myself. Take the rifleman, and then take some resources. Decide to reveal the tactic since it doesn't change my strength, but I do take a bunch of resources. Take the selective breeding, which I need as well. And then I build this knight because I know that Klakla is going to destroy my organized religion, so I'm going to drop back down to 12 strength. And in case Kimmo sacks from 18 and I'm at 12, so he'd be at 20, so I would need all of these defense cards in order to actually defend this. It might be a little bit be overly careful, but I really don't want to deal with I don't want to deal with any aggression right now. I already have to rebuild this organized religion next turn. I can't necessarily go for my production, but at the very least, since I knew that the terrorism was going to come up, I'm just preparing by grabbing as many resources as I can. All right, see, Klakla was not able to flip the deck, and he offers international trade agreement. I'm very glad to accept any part of this. Just finishes ocean liner and gets a little bit stronger. Not really sure why he's building this warrior. Didn't really change the math too much, but maybe he just wanted to be slightly stronger than me. Watt's finally on the row, so I can go for him. Kimmo does go for the spy, but I can defend, so that's pretty nice here. He didn't sack, so I didn't need both defense cards, but still, thought it was still prudent to do that. Anyways, you can really see that Kimmo's production is really bad here, but he is gaining a very big cultural lead over both me and Klakla. I would really like to go for Watt stuff here, but I do have to build this organized religion again in order for me to actually not be in unrest. But at the very least, I have all the techs that I really need. I have a ton of resources in hand to go for his stuff, but I just can't do it this turn. So start with the rifleman. I do need to get stronger so that I can defend. And that eats up most of my resources itself. Go for Watt since the age is going to end before our next turn. Build that Organized Religion, and then take the reserves. Really wish I could have had an Urban Growth earlier instead of having to do this the slow way with Efficient Upgrade, but I was able to build everything I could. I built a lot of resource stuff, and I didn't have that many resources to begin with. At the very least, Watt will make all of these really, really cheap. So, although my production really sucks right now, my science is pretty decent. I have a good civil action bank, so I have enough actions to actually upgrade my things on time. If I were like on monarchy, then this would be way too slow. But since I'm on republic, I can get really high production really fast. Klakla takes Conmon and gets out of despotism. Uses his reserves 1. Again, not exactly sure why he's getting stronger 1 warrior at a time. It doesn't seem like he really needs to, but he does, and that is what it is. I'm just not 100% sure about it. I feel like maybe he could have spent some of his turns or spent some of his population going in other directions at some point. Just the fact that this took extra resources to build 2 extra warriors, didn't gain that much strength in order to do it, and yeah, just not exactly 100% sure why he needs a bunch of warriors this way. Kimmo seeds, flips rats, which is fine for everybody for the most part. I mean, it sucks for Kimmo because he can't increase pop next turn, but I've been sitting on that 1 food for a long time. It's before I upgraded. Anyways, Kimmo goes for strategy. I was actually very, very surprised at this. This is 2/3 of the amount of science that he had, so I didn't really expect him to get stronger in this regard. So now my politics of strength that I played way back when, not looking too good here. But yeah, I wouldn't have expected going for the strategy at this point. But he does, so now I have to tread a little carefully. There's a couple of Age 1 events in the way first, so yeah, I can't really afford to get stronger right now anyways, so I just have to do my own thing. I do kind of want to keep seeding though, so I seed Ravagers of Time first. Klakla wins the inhabited territory. Kind of can see why he was going for some extra warriors now. Wins it for pretty little amount, so it's pretty nice. But yeah, seed Ravagers of Time. I think that this happy face might be really important for Kimmo. I don't really care about what happens with Klakla at all. He doesn't really seem to have his production and stuff going. He does have okay resources, okay science, just no culture production, and yeah, I don't see him as a very huge threat right now, so at all. So I kind of just thinking about ways to hurt Kimmo in a sense, and I don't think that this Roman roads is going to bother me. Crumbling this Roman roads is going to bother me too much. Already have a happiness solution. I'll have plenty of resource production, and yeah, I should be able to be fine with my population once I get this breeding going. So I go for both, play my reserves, and pretty much upgrade as much as I possibly can. Yeah, then I take the wave as well, since I can't really do much else. Can't really take much more science stuff, and wave is fine, even though I mean I can use it right now, but yeah, it's not maximum effective. It's always going to be I'm always going to be stronger than Klakla for the most part. So Klakla finally goes for breeding, upgrades that so that won't be in consumption. Goes for Marlene, which I really don't know why he goes for Marlene here. He takes her for 2 civil actions. Could have taken the reserves 2 here. I think would have been a lot better. Yeah, I don't know what's going on here with this Marlene play. Definitely think take the reserves. Maybe start going for journalisms next turn or something. Could be fine. But yeah, this doesn't really make much sense to me since Marlene kind of sucks when you have movies, since she only provides +1 per movie, as opposed to like Chaplin provides +4 for the first movie. But yeah. Kimmo seeds, flips inhabited, not one of the strength-based things, which I'm very happy to see. And then he also wins it as well. So, yeah. And he wins it with 3 warriors, or 3 swordsmen. So I think that's very, very, very expensive in order to go for. And he follows this up by, well, first off, building a drama. And then he goes for Gandhi, saying that, well, you have 2 military actions, so just try and shut down that war plan. But the fact that he goes for Gandhi this early might be his demise for the most part. I do think that, obviously, I think he overpaid for his inhabited. Seems really, really unnecessary to pay that much. You know, that's 9 resources down when you only have 3 resource reduction. So, yeah, he really is on the I'm just going to hide behind Gandhi. You know, I have a. Oh, sorry, I'll let this clear out for a bit. I have a 50 culture lead or so. He'll have 90 at the end of this. Actually, I'll just let this production go. He has 93 at the end, so he'll have, you know, approximately a 50 culture lead after I seed and produce and stuff. But his production is so terrible here that I think that even this play for going behind Gandhi is, it's just too soon, and I do think that this kind of spiral in decision coming from bidding so much on the inhabited for him is really going to come with some downsides here. And then I actually have 2 strength-based things in here, so I'm really happy that I'm staying the strongest right now. If I wasn't the strongest, I'd offer this military alliance, and then what I seed is now I do seed this historic territory because Kimmo is so weak. So first I pick up the international agreement, and then I take the multimedia and revolutionary idea. There were a couple of things that I could have taken. Wasn't really 100% sure what I should have taken specifically, but my general thought is I don't want to take more than like 2 or 3 cards with international agreement. I don't want to make the deck go too fast, especially if I'm looking to play a later game with better economy. So I just take a couple cards. I'm not 100% sure which ones I should have exactly taken, which is the best optimization. But I knew in the end that I did want the multimedia in hand, that I didn't want the revolutionary idea, and I didn't want to. Yeah, and I knew that a lot of the other things that I wanted were on 1CA anyways. So instead of taking like 3 cards here from like oil, military theory, and something else, I decided just to take 2 cards to kind of keep the deck a little bit slower. Might not be the best thing for my civil action economy, but I think it's still fine for the most part. And then we'll talk about that historic seed. Basically, I think that, well, I basically think that since I seeded historic here, since Kimmo is Gandhi, since Klakla is not really a threat with no military techs, I'm pretty much thinking that I'm willing to send an entire classic army for it. So, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And I'm already thinking about this at this point. I don't think that Klakla has a lot of ability to get so much more threateningly strong that he's going to go for it. And yeah, so here you can see that I picked up oil. I was kind of debating whether or not I should have gone for should directly think about going for multimedias. Obviously, I don't have the resources for it this turn, but I wasn't 100% sure if I wanted to just pick up some more resources, you know, still pick up Marine and stuff, you know, have the military theory out already or something. So, you know, I could have gone for, so like this turn I could have gone for revolutionary idea, military theory, picked up the other revolutionary idea. Next turn go for multimedias. Still have good amount of resource production with 3 coals and stuff. But I decide that, you know, I plan on switching out from Marie right now. 9 resource production is nice, but 15 feels really, really nice as well. Plus switching to Marie gives me 3 science from the oils. So pretty happy with this position to just increase my resource production a lot. Kind of sucks that I couldn't do this in one fell swoop. You know, last turn I spent my entire time upgrading coals. This turn I spent my entire turn upgrading oils. Would have been nicer to just go for oils directly, but there's pretty much no way you can upgrade directly from bronze to oil. So it does feel like I needed to make that stopgap in order to actually make it possible. So now I have, 9 science plus revolutionary idea, I can go for either one of these next turn. Because I won the international agreement, though, I won't be able to seed or play politics next turn. Klakla Seeds reveals politics of strength, so you'll just see some cards that I made. So I have some pretty good ones at the moment. Impact of industry, super notable. Competition and population are actually not very good for me since I got my free production so late. Kimmo is not terrible in it, right? Since he has 3, but I only have 3 plus 4, so 7 total. Competition is not the best for me. I'm thinking that if I want to send an entire army for historic territory, these two are going to be really, really awful for me. But I also have strength, which just kind of goes in the same line. Like competition and strength could both be okay impacts, but only if I don't win the historic, basically. Anyways, all goes for justice system, increases production, takes the right idea, takes patriotism, takes modern infantry. Doesn't even bother with air force. Yeah, neither of us. Like I have a bunch of resources, but I'm not really pushing for war. I can't use my politics action next turn. So he doesn't really have the science to go for multiple techs, so just taking the modern infantry seems fine. Alright, I do want to really, really show off that there's a pretty big gap in between me and Kimmo here. It's 42 culture difference, but you're going to see, we're just going to see if I can basically catch up or not with, I'm racing with a huge resource production. My science is good. Planning on going for multimedia soon, especially because Klakla stayed weak. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Kimmo doesn't seed, grabs the Air Force, goes for cavalrymen, takes military buildup, kills another cavalryman. So Kimmo is actually the strongest now. It's a good thing that I haven't seeded any strength-based things since. And then this turn, I start going for multimedias. I have enough science for it, so that's what I start to do. Basically I decide to just go for the culture route. I could have played military theory to maybe start pressuring Kimmo in the sense of his military game, but his culture production is very capped. It's hard for him to get any more culture production since the only thing he can really do is build religions. He has no science at all for the most part. And I'm thinking that I can just probably race it down with impacts and just getting a lot more culture production with better buildings and stuff. So I don't go for the military theory line. I could have, gone for a revolutionary idea, pick up Air Force as well, maybe really start to pressure him. But, it's hard to war Gandhi if I only have 5 military actions. So I decided to go for the very peaceful route here. Go for multimedia, pick up the engineering to make the future multimedia cheaper, take the reserves, and pro sports. Kind of thinking about pro sports in terms of maybe I draw impact of tech, or maybe I use it for the space flight later. But yeah, I know I already have a happiness solution, but it is like a cheap tech that I can just develop out if I have a lot of science. And then I keep industry and strength. I had competition and population as well. What I'm thinking about strength is the highest variance one. If I win historic, obviously I'm not going to seed it, but if I don't win historic and Kimmo wins historic or something, then I can seed impact of strength and I'll very likely be the strongest while Kimmo is the weakest. So it's like, in that sense, I did want to keep it compared to the other two, which both population and competition were both very mediocre. And then I don't really draw anything relevant here. Klakla92th flips the Ravages of Time that I put in. So he finally starts getting a little culture production. Yeah, this is why I think he shouldn't have gone for Marlene, since now Pierre is here, completely free for him. Would have been a big culture boost, but yeah, still isn't really able to go for movies. Doesn't even take it, but I don't really think whatever he's doing matters too much. Alright, Kimmo Seeds, flips develop territory. I'm not thinking about winning this one, I'm thinking about the historic. Klakla wins this, so it's fine. Uses heavy cavalry, or adopts heavy cavalry to use as military buildup. Takes our idea and military theory. he can't really use any yellow cards. I'm assuming he's taking military theory to deny Klakla military actions, but he can't really do much with, his hand is clogged. It's all technologies for the most part, so it's gonna be hard to navigate from here from Kimmo. Well, it's not hard. Just doesn't have a lot of options. I mean. Anyways, I see the impact industry. I bid 9. Plus, you see that I don't have any colonization cards, so I sent away 4 units for this. He's gone. Kimmo is Gandhi. Klakla is at 11 strength. Doesn't really matter to me what happens there. I do need to defend still, so instead of going for engineering, I go for military theory. And use random reserves to build up 2 multimedias. I'm not saving the resources, but I also have a ton to work with, so I don't really mind too much. Then afterwards, I pick up the urban growth and the movies. So right now you can see that after production and winning the historic territory, last turn I was behind like 40. Now I'm only behind like 25-ish, well, 27. So really catching up with every turn. And then we also know that I have 12 from the impact of industry in here as well. So, yeah. Klakla Seeds flips impact of agriculture, which is pretty even for everybody. I have a little bit extra from the international trade agreement. Klakla goes for Marlene, picks up movies, and then finally starts getting some culture production going. He's pretty much seeing that I don't really care about my military since I threw it all away. So he's trying to pick up his culture production now, trying not to worry about his strength at all. Kimmo goes for Red Cross. Pretty much the only thing he can do with his actions. He can't really build anything with his resources anymore. So if he just upgrades here, he'll have 9 food next turn, and he should be able to get 2 steps, since both Klakla and I can get 1 each. By the way, last turn I also drew Impact of Science, which is another good 17-point swing against Kimmo. So, yeah. Upgrades the farm. Builds a religion to use some way to use his resources, get out of corruption. And just moving around his tactics a bunch. I guess he's using it, just trying to get it out of his hand. Not sure it's going to come back in the next turn. So, he still has Classic Army as the better one, but he reveals the Sarge just because nobody's going for cavalry anyway. But the strength doesn't matter. Here I see Impact of Science, flip Happiness. Slightly better for me, not too much. Slightly better for Klakla, of course. And here I was kind of debating between Internet and Spaceflight. They're both pretty similar in culture gain. Spaceflight would give me 4 more culture, but in this line I also get the movies out. So that's 4 more culture already. So my deciding factor was that Internet it costs 2 less. So I might be able to do something extra with those 2 resources. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That was my whole big deciding factor. And then I don't build the step this turn from Red Cross since I can just build it next turn. Oh, and then I build 1 step too, since I'm going to need to use engineering plus 4 steps anyways, so might as well just use the action for 1 step. And then I draw Impact of Progress, which again is a very good impact for me against Kimmo. And then you can see that at the end of this turn, after going for a Nobel Prize, getting my huge culture production, we're basically even at this point. Klakla goes for multimedia, or grabs multimedia, goes for theater though. Goes for Revolutionary Idea, goes for satellites. I'm a little surprised that Klakla didn't decide to go for spaceflight here. He has a lot of techs as well, a lot of Age 3 techs. He definitely had the resources to go for spaceflight, so I'm a little surprised that he didn't. But he does go for a Nobel Prize, goes for extra movies. This one movie is worth 10, his next one is worth another 5, so maybe he decided that building up on his impacts might be a little bit better. Going for more movies for like architecture or something might be a little bit better. So yeah, I mean, his base flight is pretty big. This is 3, 6, 10 plus 8, 18, 19, 20, 21 plus 3 more. So this would have been at least 24. So still a little surprising, but maybe he did the math and figured out some of the turns are a little bit better in different ways, or that using his actions this way might just be a little better in the long run. That being said, he has a huge gap to cover against Kimmo. The only thing is though, Klakla probably doesn't know how good the impacts are for him that I plan on seeding, so he probably doesn't know exactly how close against Kimmo he is. Probably figures that he can't catch up to me though. Yeah, at this point, it looks like a completely foregone conclusion that I am going to win this game since I have a wonder to complete, a much better wonder than Kimmo does. My production is so much bigger at this point. I'm still going to get one more Nobel Prize. Offers international tourism and accepted. Kimmo builds his 3 steps, and then just build some more religion. So, yeah. Then I see my impact of progress. So science flips. It's really good for me, of course. Go for engineering. Go for pro sports. Build 1 step. Decided to build a movies first, and I'm deciding to build a lab, destroy a lab, as opposed to destroying my production buildings here. Maybe there's impact. I know there's impact of industry. I know impact of agriculture flips, but maybe there's balance, and I decided just to build a lab as opposed to destroy a lab as opposed to destroying a farm, and it doesn't really matter too much. So I just do it this way. There's internet for 28. Destroy my last lab. Build a warrior with the 2 extra resources I saved. And the reason is although it's worse for variety, but harmony is obviously really, really, really terrible for me. So I decided to shore that up a little bit. And then Klakla seeds, and harmony does flip. So instead of scoring 4, I score 8. And then it goes for multimedia. And it goes for an arena and a rocket. So a little unsure as to why I went for multimedia instead of a movie. His balance was already quite good. So he had +6 already. Possible variety, but yeah, not 100% sure. But this is what he decided. It is what he decides to do. So you can see that before the impacts, I already had a big lead, and the first one is impact of culture. So there's also a big lead between Kimmo and Klakla. So it doesn't really seem like there's much of a race going on here, but we'll just see how the impacts turn out. I started with about like a 30-point lead or something. Now it's gone up to 50 over 2 impacts. Progress, so it's another 12-point gain. Klakla is catching up quite a bit, but still 65-point difference. Colony is not a really big impactful one, and the technology is also a really, really, really big impactful one. So this is the one impact that I didn't seed, or that I wouldn't have expected to see. Colonies, that was a fair impact either by Kimmo or Klakla for the most part, but this technology was definitely seeded by Klakla, trying to catch up to Kimmo as much as possible. So started the end of the game with a 30-point lead, ended up with about 75. So impacts worked really well in my favor. Just the fact that Kimmo went for Gandhi so early allowed me to commit to throwing away my entire army and going just fully for culture. So if you've ever been in this kind of position before, thinking that, you need to have a war in order to win the game at the end, there are a lot of really good impacts when you have really high science, and obviously if you have this much resource production, you're going to catch up a lot as well. So even though it didn't feel like there were a ton of turns to catch up and close like a 40 to 50 point culture difference, sometimes you don't always need the war for it. And even though like I started 40 to 50 points behind at like round 14 or something, ending this much ahead is definitely can show how much the game can still swing, even in a very peaceful one. So I do think that Kimmo deciding to throw away the entire Legion for a Inhabited 2 really, and then having that decision and going for Gandhi really cost him there. Granted, if I had won the Inhabited, I would also be in a relatively good place. I wouldn't have needed to see the Historic and throw in my entire army and stuff. I mean, I never needed to just throw it away, but I decided to after Gandhi was elected. And I was able to just invest 15 plus resources every single turn into movies and multimedia. And just having this amount of production is just ridiculous. So at the end of this game, I won this one. Kimmo second, Klakla92th last. So our final result, our results so far with all but one game finished in our group is I'm leading. Goldon is second with 17. Like I said, Klakla is going to be for sure relegated, and then the last chance for Kimmo is to win the last game. So he'll end up at 14 points against Skywalker's 13. Goldon and I are also on a battle as well, in the sense that since we're in the same game together, if Goldon wins the next game and I take last, then there's still a chance for him to be the one who advances. But basically the result is that both Kimmo and Goldon are really fighting to win, and if I just take second, I will win the group. If Goldon takes second, I will win the group. A second or worse, I'll win the group as well. So I'm in a favorable position, but it's definitely not set, and Kimmo is definitely fighting for his standing here. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.